All right, so thank you all for being here. Those of you who are here, I'm sure we'll have more people joining us in a minute. So today's meditation class, again, we're going to focus on the breath. Those of you who have been to my meditation classes in person before have been through this probably. Unless you missed this particular class both times that I taught it. But I'm going to go ahead and reiterate reinforcement. I want to talk a little bit before we start the meditation about the importance and the power of the breath. So, number one, it is the most important fuel source. Obviously, you can go weeks without eating, you can go days without drinking water, but you can only last minutes without breathing. The ancient Taoist sages had a relationship. They had this word qi, which meant breath and life force energy. So it had a dual meaning. And so they saw the two as very closely tied. Interestingly enough, science has borne that relationship out, that it's not just breath is life, but breath is actually how much energy your cells have. So our cells get energy by doing something that's called cellular respiration. And we have aerobic cellular respiration and anaerobic cellular respiration. So aerobic cellular respiration means with oxygen. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Let me know if you can't hear me or if you can hear me. Somebody say something. If you could comment here on the stream side. Okay, so let me go back to what I was talking about. So cellular respiration, your body will always choose aerobic with oxygen when it can, because it is the most effective and efficient way of getting energy. Now, the type of energy it gets is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And this is basically, you can think of it as your chemical fuel for your cells. And so, interestingly enough, whenever your cell has enough oxygen in order to do aerobic cellular respiration, it will do that, and it will get 13 times more ATP, 13 times more fuel when it has enough oxygen as opposed to when it doesn't. So there are many people who are breathing rapidly and shallowly, and on a daily basis, constantly. Some people forget to breathe. I know my wife used to do that sometimes. She would just notice that suddenly she needed to breathe. She hadn't been breathing. So she doesn't have this problem anymore, but it is not uncommon that people just hold their breath when they're stressed, and they breathe more shallow and more. They get less oxygen that way. Now, the problem is when you're getting less oxygen, then you're not giving your cells all the fuel that it needs. So when I'm talking about your cells, I mean skin cells, lung cells, heart cells, liver cells. Every cell in your body needs blood cells, right? All of these cells need oxygen to produce ATP, or to get enough of it to stay alive longer. So what happens to the cell is it can survive without oxygen for a little while, and it can continue to do anaerobic cellular respiration. But after a time, it will eventually die, that cell will, without oxygen. So imagine if you were breathing deeper, if you were constantly breathing deeper, you would be giving your cells, all the cells in your body, as much oxygen as they needed to function at maximum capacity, rather than at the bare minimal capacity. So in order to heal faster, the cells need more oxygen. In order to function at maximal capacity, they need to have more oxygen. So super important. Breathing more slowly basically gives us more time for the lungs, the alveoli in the lungs, to absorb the oxygen and to into the blood, and to expel the carbon dioxide from the blood. It gives us more time for that gaseous exchange to happen. Breathing deeper obviously brings in more of that oxygen and breathes out more of that carbon dioxide. So full inhales and full exhales help the process. Carbon dioxide is, in too high a quantities, is a toxin in your body. So that's why we expel it. Okay, so slowing the breath helps us in that way. There's also an interesting little phenomena in that slowing the breath slows both the nervous system, the firing of the signals in the nerve system, and the heart rate. Okay, so that's why they usually tell you, okay, when you're upset, take a deep breath, count to 10, all of this stuff. So it basically is a great way to reduce your stress. Furthermore, and perhaps with regards to meditation, the most important aspect of the breath is that the breath is the easiest way for you to connect with your body. It is the easiest way for you to become conscious of what's happening in your body and for you to command the body. Because normally breathing and the heartbeat are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So we don't even have to think about it. And when we take control of the breath, we are basically hacking into the autonomic nervous system, and we're taking control of the process. So there are other processes within the autonomic nervous system that we can learn to control as well. Wim Hof is a famous world record holder for being able to use his breath to do phenomenal things that were thought to be humanly impossible. One of the recent things that he did was to basically prove to scientists that he could control his immune system using the breath. And not only that, but they thought, well, maybe it's just you, maybe there's something strange about your body. And so he trained a group of students at the university that was doing the study to do the same thing. And the students who had his training had an inflammatory response when introduced to a toxin. And the ones without his training had the inflammatory response, and the ones with his training did not have an inflammatory response. So deep breathing can reduce your inflammation in the body, and when I say deep breathing, I mean full controlled deep breaths can reduce inflammation in the body, but it also was found to increase the number of white blood cells. So super important for your immune system, for your immune health, which is kind of nice in these days. So, but when you do this, when you breathe in, you are mentally controlling something within the body. You're connecting your mind to the body. So that's the easiest way to establish that mind-body connection is through the breath. So some of this class is going to be teaching you how to breathe more deeply and more fully, and how to breathe in different parts of your body, or in different ways. But a lot of it is also going to be mindfulness about the breath. So when people talk about mindfulness meditation, what we're talking about is simply being aware of what's happening right now in this moment. Not our thoughts about the past, not our thoughts about the future. Right now, in this moment, what's happening within ourselves, around us, all of these things. Silence the phone here. So, you still with me? No one has commented. Sharon, thank you. She says, I can hear you. Thank you very much, Sharon. I'm glad you can all hear me. Okay, well, at least I hope it's not Sharon. All right. So, breath awareness is basically the aspect of mindfulness that we're going to address in this particular meditation class. There are other aspects, such as paying attention to what you're feeling in your body, about all these things that are usually happening on a subconscious level, making them conscious, bringing them front and center into our focus, into the center of attention. And in the process of doing this with mindfulness meditation, what we do is we remove all the other stuff from our minds, at least for the moment. And so it turns off the chatter about the 10,000 things and about all the things going on in our lives and all the stressors and all the laundry list of things that we need to get done. So we're going to try here. I'm in a room where there's a little bit of accessory sound going on, but it's okay. It can't be helped right now. So hopefully that's going to be, it should be kept to a minimum, and she's doing her best. So we're going to go ahead and move into the meditation phase right now. So with meditation, there's no right way or wrong way to do things. There are just ways that are perhaps more effective. My recommendation is always sitting upright. A lot of times in my meditation class, sometimes I'll see people slouched, and then I kind of notice that they're sleeping when I am talking about or asking them to do something else. They're not following instructions. I can tell they fell asleep while they were meditating, which is not a horrible thing. Meditation is not something where we have to do it right every time, or we have to do it perfectly. It's like any other skill that you learn. It takes time to get good at it. And when I first started meditating, boy, my mind was just all over the place. It was very, very difficult. But with practice, it gets easier, just like anything else. So I recommend that you sit up straight. I recommend that you have your knees bent at roughly a 90-degree angle, your feet flat on the floor, if you can. If you are if your legs are a little vertically challenged and your feet don't all the way to go down to the floor, that's fine. Just do the best you can. You could alternately also sit cross-legged in your chair if that's more comfortable for you. But again, I want to encourage you to straighten your posture, sit upright. Your hands. A lot of times people think, oh, you got to do some kind of special thing with your hands. It's just not necessary. Some people like doing this. For some people, it just helps to sort of energetically focus them and center them. For others, sitting with their hands crossed may be better. For others, palms up with the back of the palm resting on the legs. For others, palms down on the legs is fine. So whatever you're comfortable with. And now I just want you to close your eyes. And I want you to begin to shift your focus to the breath. I just want you to notice the breath. You don't have to do anything with it. Don't try to take control of it. Just notice it. Notice if it has a rhythm. Notice how it feels going into your nostrils. Just focus your attention on the tips of your nostrils, the very opening portion. Feel the air going in your nostrils. What does that feel like to you? Maybe you feel the air going deeper into your nostrils. Feel it midway or in the back of the nostrils. Now notice where else you are feeling the sensation of breathing in your body. Do you feel it internally, inside your chest? Do you feel your chest moving with the breath? What about the belly? Do you feel the breath expanding inside the belly? Do you feel your belly moving? And there's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong in the breath. There's simply observing these things. Now maybe you can observe all the sensations of the breath at once. In the belly, in the chest, in the throat, in the nostrils. So this is your body effortlessly, lovingly keeping you alive without any effort. in your part. It's effortless. Now I want you to try to just slow the breath a little bit. Now try to slow it as much as you can. Try to breathe in as deep as you can, nice and slow. Not rapidly, but nice slow inhale. Pause at the top of the breath and slowly let it all out. When you get to the bottom of the breath, pause at the bottom of the breath. Breathing all the way in. Pausing at the top. 3 seconds. And then slowly letting the air fall out through the nostrils. Pausing at the bottom. For 3 seconds. Again, breathing all the way in. Pausing and out. When you get to the bottom of the breath, try to breathe every last bit of air out. And you do pause and hold for 3 seconds. All right, now just go back to observing the breath. Do you notice a change in the rhythm? Or in some other aspect of how it feels? Does it feel easier and more comfortable, or more difficult and uncomfortable? There's no right or wrong. There's no judgment, just noticing. Observe again the movement of your belly when you breathe. Try now to expand the belly more with your inhale. Try to keep your chest relatively still as you expand your belly more and more with each inhale, like a balloon, filling it up with air all the way and collapsing as the air goes out. As you inhale, try to extend the belly forward as far as you can, out to the sides as far as you can. Try feeling it expand into the low back. Try to expand the belly down into the pelvis. The very apex of your inhale, pause to hold the breath for a few seconds. Notice how this feels. At the bottom of the exhale now, pause for 3 seconds and notice how this feels. Fully expanding the belly in all directions with the inhale. Try now at the bottom of the exhale, after the belly has collapsed fully, pull the abdomen back inward toward the spine. Again, expanding the abdomen down into the pelvis, forward, sideways, and back. On the inhale, pausing at the top, letting it collapse, and as you exhale, at the end of that collapse, try to pull the belly button towards the spine. Now return to simply observing your breath. Notice in what ways, if any, it has changed. Any sounds you hear or any distractions that come to mind, simply refocus your mind on observing the breath, feeling it going through the nostrils, feeling it in the throat, in the chest, in the belly, simply observing what's happening. Now, I want you to try to expand the chest more with your inhale. Try to keep your belly relatively still as you expand the chest. More and more with each inhale. Notice how this feels. How this is very different from the belly breath. As you inhale, try to expand the chest forward as far as you can. Try to expand the chest upward into the shoulders, the neck, and the head. Try to expand the rib cage outward towards your arms, towards the sides. At the very top of your inhale, pause to hold the breath for a few seconds. Notice how this feels. When you get to the bottom of the breath, pause for a few seconds. Notice how that feels. Fully expanding the chest outward, upward, and sideways. Forward, sideways, and up. Pause at the top. Let it collapse and sink. Pause at the bottom and repeat. full expansion of the rib cage. The rib cage projects forward, projects sideways, projects upward into the shoulders and the head. Pause. And let it out slow. Pause at the bottom of the exhale. Now we're going to practice full breaths. We're going to begin with expanding the belly. When the belly is fully expanded, the abdomen is fully expanded in all directions, forward, sideways, back. Then we're going to breathe up into the chest. This is all one breath. So begin expanding the belly, down into the pelvis, forward, outward, sideways, back. When you get to the apex of that breath, pause, and then breathe into the chest. No exhale. All the way, expanding the chest in all directions. Sideways, forward, upward, pause at the top. And let it all out. This is a full breath. The chest breath by itself does not give you all the oxygen you can take in, and neither does the belly breath by itself. It is easier to fully breathe when you start with the belly. Expanding the belly down into the pelvis, rounding it forward, sideways, back. Now continuing the breath up into the chest, lifting the chest, expanding the rib cage forward, expanding it sideways. Pause at the top and slowly let it out. The bottom of the breath, pause. When you begin to breathe in, breathe all the way into the belly, fully expanding down into the pelvis, forward, out in front of you, sideways, into the back, then breathe up into the chest. Up through the chest, into the shoulders, into the neck and the head, expanding the chest sideways out towards the arms. Pause at the top, take another sip, and let it all go. Relax your shoulders. Now, on the exhale, instead of pulling in the abdomen, just let the breath fall out without pushing it. And rest there at the bottom. And wait until you have to breathe in again. Again, expanding fully the belly, the chest. Pausing at the top and letting it all out. At the bottom, just let the air fall out. Relax, not trying to push it out. And then rest there until you feel you have to breathe. Notice that sense of stillness when you pause at the bottom of the breath. Now return to simply observing your breath. Notice in what ways, if any, it has changed. Now just feel it. Again, if your mind starts to wander, simply bring it back to focusing on the feeling of the breath coming in and out through your nostrils, feeling it inside of your body and how it moves your body. Any sounds that you hear that distract you, any thoughts, simply return to focusing on the feeling of the breath inside of you. Observing now how your body feels. observing your mind, whether you have more or less thoughts racing around in the mind, whether you feel less jittery, more at peace perhaps, or not. It's all subjective. There's no right or wrong. It simply is what it is. So, thank you very much for joining me. Those of you who have, like the video if you can. Click the little thumbs up symbol at the top of the screen. You may have noticed attached to the Facebook invitation, there was a donation button for charity water. So really excellent charity. They bring not just water to villages, but they bring wells. They help the villages dig wells, contained wells. A lot of villages in third world countries, they have wells. It's just a hole in the ground. But we're talking about contained wells where they can get clean water, and it pumps it up so that it's not sitting with still water at the surface, which becomes a breeding ground for all sorts of mosquitoes and diseases, and it's actually one of the number one causes of diseases in third world countries. So bringing fresh, clean water, which is something we all take for granted. Not only do we don't have to go to a well to get it. It comes right out of our tap inside of our house. We have water in such ready supply that we're willing to pay money for water in bottles that we don't need. We could just take it right out of the tap. It's perfectly clean. There are people in third world countries that have to walk for miles and miles just to get clean water and carry it back. And then actually it's not clean, it's just water. They have to boil it to decontaminate it so that they can drink it. We take so many things for granted, and this is a big one. This is one that can have a major impact on the health and the economies of developing countries, because the children no longer have to walk for 5 hours to go collect water and then come back with the water. They can instead, they have time to go to school. And the more that they become educated, then, of course, they can contribute to their economy in better ways and in the development of their country. So please give. It's an excellent charity. All of the money that you give goes toward building wells. None of it goes towards the administration of the charity. The administration of the charity is paid for by large donations from corporations and trusts, so charitable trusts. So please give, and thank you very much for joining me. Stay safe, stay calm. When you get stressed, just breathe. Namaste. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave any questions you have in the comments, and I'll try to answer them for you, or you can text them to me.